I mean, I'd say like the space, it is interesting. And it is, I tell people I have like 3 roommates and da-da-da, and then they come to the space and they're just like, oh, okay, like you get it, you know? And like the whole vibe of this place, honestly, it's like, when I found it on Listings Project, the thing that got me, I love The Simpsons, as I'm sure you know from my Instagram, but it's the fact that one of the guys, I saw this little Bart Simpson, this little but big, this massive Bart Simpson. But that thing kind of, I was like, I should live there, you know? That's what got me. But I mean, the space itself is very much just, it's the fact that it is just this big amalgamation of a bunch of different things. There's so many possibilities to the space. Like we will literally, not we, but one of the guys will clear out the space. He's like always traveling, but when he's in town, he'll clear out the space and we'll throw like full on like raves in this space. You know what I mean? Oh, wow. Like everything can kind of change how it needs to. And it's all kind of like pieced together and done in a way that's like, not even that it's messy. I hate the word eclectic, but I always say eclectic. It's just like an eclectic kind of vibe, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely like it's a collaborative space.
Yeah. There's stuff that's just goofy too. Like we have a huge Bart Simpson or like these little angels that are hanging out, which I'm not a fan of, but they're here. And you know what? I respect them. You know what I mean? Like it's all just like, it's interesting, you know?
I feel you.
Yeah.
So we're going to take a look at the studio now.
Yeah.
And check out some of your work and talk about your process.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. A lot of my work is, I use a lot of like photo references or things that I've either collected digging through archives or going through like eBay and finding like old found images. Or, you know, there's different searches and things you can do. Or even like I've gotten into like archive.org or whatever, where you can look through old photos or even videos. I found a really cool video the other day, actually. Like I said, I have so many like different photos and things. And I was upstate on a residency trying to figure out what to paint because I was getting ready for my show. And it was right around like last October. So there was like, you know, the news cycle, everything was crazy. Yeah. It was tough to wrap my head around what to paint. So I was just like, in an effort, I'm very much a like throw everything at the wall and see what sticks type, you know? Like that's how I do it. So I just started throwing, I was going through my phone and pulling out every single image that kind of had like a little burst to me and just drawing it on this canvas. And then it just started to layer and layer and layer. And before I really got back into painting, I have so many sketchbooks that I keep like, so many sketchbooks. These are dusty, but I just have so many. But it was, and that's how it worked, would just be drawing and drawing and drawing, never one full image on one thing. It would always be a layer of a layer of a layer. Oh, I'm interested in how this face looks or this or that. So this just kind of evolved from that of me picking through old images or photos or things that I had, you know, that I found that I thought were interesting, that kind of like, you know, sparked something in me. And a level of interest.
And this is something that's sort of unique to the South, right? Kind of like what's happening right here.
Yeah. So like, as going through that, there were a lot of faces and hands, and then I landed on this. She was a color guard. Okay. It's an old photo of like. There's this level of like recording of the Black South that is happening now, but wasn't happening. You know, so to see it, we have to go through like your aunt to your uncle's like, you know, photo album, or you know when you're. You know, the one uncle who buys the nice camera. It's my dad, actually, who buys the nice camera and is just out there just like taking pictures and stuff, you know? And so it just became, you know, we're having to go through those things to find like the record of those times. And not the big things like we all see the photos and videos of like Freaknik or whatever, but just like, you know, like a color guard or the band, you know, like a football game or like a high school football game or things like that. And so she just stuck out of all the images that I did. So I'm up there and I'm just like really just started to develop it further and further and further. And it's just started to feel like the painting itself serves almost as a sculpture of like my sketchbook, you know, or like my ideas or like a quilt in a way. Yeah. It's a bunch of different things that I'm putting together. And there is this idea of finding old archival images and then placing them in a new way, especially when it's just like figures that otherwise would just be figures in a picture. Like you can tell that this is just a woman who's a color guard, right?
Yeah.
But it's also, in doing this and preserving her, like and making this image, I'm offering this figure like a chance at a different life, more autonomy than just like that static photo tucked away in some digital, you know, I don't want to say prison, but just some digital, like, you know, a box, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So then by pulling them out and putting them in a different place, it's sort of like you offer this figure a new life, more autonomy. And there's also this idea of like preservation through transformation. I caught this literally on the corner over on Class, and I saw a guy push over that newsstand and then having like just having a moment, you know? But he was on his phone in the photo that I snapped, but I wanted to like, I think not having phones and pictures is important because it I feel like technology is already such a burden. But yeah, it's like an everyday thing. How many times do you see guys outside like having a fucking difficult time and you're just like, yeah, of course, man's is just having a day. Lately, I've been looking at like John Singer Sargent just because I think that he's like such a really like strong classical painter, but he did things in a way. I found an old recording of letters that he wrote to one of his students where he was just kind of giving like his process. And a lot of it was just like paint what needs to be there and nothing more. Like get rid of all the frivolous things, which at a time was a big push away from the classical painting, like academic painting at that time. And I've used that a lot. I've used that recently where it's just like, I'll paint exactly what you need to see to understand what the figure or form is. And then after that, it's kind of left up to you to like fill in the blanks. Like I have one painting that I did of, it's just meant to be like you know, in every neighborhood in a city, you have the guy that's on the corner at the bodega that we all kind of know this guy, you know? And I realized coming from Atlanta up here, I was like, it's the same guy. And then when I was in London for a little bit, I was like, oh, same guy. You know, there's always just that guy. And so I wanted to make a painting of that figure and create like a mythos around it, you know? So I look at a lot of masters, honestly. Like I think that there's so much that we can learn from looking at painters or even like contemporary painters now. Like I do look at Henry Taylor or Jennifer Packer. If you like painting just as just painting for painting's sake, like as a craft, there's a lot of people that I really enjoy because I think there is a big part about pushing that forward and actually how you work and what you make and how through doing that and through referencing these people or using them as like an inspiration, it sort of like gives me a chance for my work to have a conversation with the idea of the artistic canon in a sense, because it is like, oh, he's painting very technically in these ways because he's trying to address like the idea of where this work fits in the bigger timeline, you know? Right. I used to use a lot of acrylic and airbrush, but as time has gone on, like I'm mostly oils now because I am painting figures, and oil is just, you can sort of, if you paint flesh with oil, it just holds a little bit, it reflects light in a way that it feels alive a little bit more than acrylic. Mind you, there are some people who do acrylic really, really well. Like Henry Taylor, for instance, is like, he can do it beautifully. It always feels flat for me. So I've leaned more into oils and then spray paint, actually. I use
some more examples here.
Oh yeah. I use spray paint with things just because it is like this guy is actually it's me. This is like a self-portrait I did from, I want to say I did this one last year, but I'll use like spray paint, or even this underpainting is like a bright orange. But a lot of it is because of the colors. It sort of like matches the colors you'd see in the city. Like these like really neon-y colors, or this red is very much like, I'll leave my front door and see this just, you know, walking down the block. Or like these oranges that I really love like when you see the contractors, the construction guys, and they're working on they're marking something on the ground, like a pipe or something, and they just do like whatever they're, yeah, and you don't know what it means, but you know that it's like some language that they understand, a shorthand for them. I love those kind of things, those like almost offhand markings. And so I try to like put that into my work. Like the oil creates like a fleshy, organic feel, and then the spray paint in itself feels it sort of mirrors the mechanized, almost like unnatural things that we see. And it's also it's a material that if you've ever used spray paint, I used to write graffiti in my younger days, and it's something that like no matter how good you get at it, you can never be precise, and it offers up a chance of like mistakes.
Yeah, forgiving.
Yeah. Or it's like I can't control exactly how it's gonna go, so maybe I like make a mark that wasn't what I meant to make, but then in doing that, it opens up a new route for me to make it right, you know? And it can sort of like inform or like, you know, there's like an experiment that you can have from doing that, which I'm always going to music, but there's a Herbie Hancock interview where he talks about playing with Miles Davis and playing the wrong note, and Miles took a second, and then played some notes that made his note right. And Herbie was like, oh, Miles just looked at what I did as a happening, not as a mistake, but just an event that happened. And just through sort of like this sheer like confidence and skill that I think somebody like Miles Davis or Picasso or even how Henry Taylor paints, it's like, I know what I'm doing, and it's not going to be perfect. It may not be perfect, but it's not the point. It's that I'm expressing. I know how to perfectly express myself.
Yeah.
And in doing that, he's like, he made it right. And I think that that's something I've like leaned into, where it is like, even starting this painting, not sure where it's going to go. It's like, I lay down a line, I lay this down, I lay this down. Do I like that? No. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make it right. I'm going to make it work in a way, you know? And so
I think a really good example of that too is there's that painting that you have upstairs, the triptych with the car.
Yeah. That was like a big turning point painting for me. That's kind of where I really figured out that I can do that, you know? I had an idea of what I wanted to do, and I was like, I just want to use spray paint because I just felt like this would be the right like thing I need, but I was worried that it wouldn't be perfect or it wouldn't look right. And then I like just hit the moment where I was like, just do it and don't worry about that. And so it all just kind of evolved from there. Like even all this, it was like, once I get the shape down, after that, it's just, like I was talking about Cy Twombly, and it's like all just like intuitive mark making. That's what all this is, where it's just like, lay something down, wipe it away, see how it feels. But you can still tell what it all is.
Right.
It's filled in with like, are you saying like an immediacy or like an emotive kind of thing, you know? And I painted them all separately because it's meant to be like, growing up, I would like, my first car was like an old Chevy. It was a Monte Carlo, and then we'd always, you'd go to a salvage yard called a pull apart, and it would be like, as long as the piece was from a Chevy, you could put it on your car and it would work, but it might not match. It might be like a different finish or whatever, but it's meant to still be like, you know, all these things pushed together still function. So it's the painting as a sculpture in some way, you know? And it's also a figurative painting without the figure being so prominent in it because it's his ego. He's the car, which I think as a man, especially growing up in Georgia where it was like such a car culture, it's like your car is this immediate. It's also the first time. It's like the first time you're like mobile. You know what I mean? And it's your first time being like, okay, it's your first assertion usually for a lot of people as like, I'm a man in this world, because you're mobile. A lot of us had to buy them ourselves. You know what I mean? You like work a couple summers and save up enough money to get a car, and then you like, you know, you're able to actually be out, you know, do these things. So it's
a big moment.
Yeah, and it becomes this idea of like ego or self-actualization. Like I tried to use it as like a metaphor for that, where your car does represent you in a bigger sense, you know? So that's why the figure is kind of like, his face isn't really rendered. It's like a little cloudy, not cloudy, but I pushed it back somewhat, you know? So you just see, and even like having the foot out of the car, like the leg out of the car is like.
Great job on the Cortez there.
Yeah, you know. Which is like, yeah, I've been wearing Cortez the past few weeks, but I'm like, But it is like this, it's this idea, it's this assertion of like, it's a lot of like, what's the term? Not pomp, but pomp, you know? Or like, I don't know,
great.
pageantry. That's the term.
Yeah.
The pageantry of masculinity is what I was
Great way of
saying.
putting it.
Yeah. When I was making this whole thing, I was like, it is all about the pageantry of masculinity and how men feel the need to like sort of show off in a way. Like you get really big or you get swole or whatever. And it's like to express your how tough and how manly you are to other men. You think like you go to the gym and get really big and you're gonna get a bunch of attention from women, but half the time it's other guys being like, "You look good, bro," you know, or like having a nice car is like you're telling other men like, "My car's better than your car," or like, "You see me," because a lot of, I mean, I don't know. I did get some attention with the Chevys from ladies, but a lot of it was like middle-aged guys, like older guys, or like it would always be like white dads coming up to me, just looking at my car going, nice, yeah, cool, you know?